Hi everyone, we are Rickard Ockham and Ryan Gurman, and we're here today to talk about our poster, The East Asian Voicing Shift and its Role in the Origins of Tone and Register. So in this poster, we're presenting a unified model to explain the origins and evolution of tone and register in East and Southeast Asia. So in the past, these have typically been dealt with separately by different academic circles, and we're trying to bring these together and also focusing on the most important component of this, which is what we call the East Asian Voicing Shift, which is perhaps the most sweeping sound change event yet described in linguistics. So we'll be talking about languages in the Sinosphere. This is the languages that are historically influenced by and tend to be typologically convergent with the Sinitic languages. So this includes things like monosyllables and the use of tone and register. So this includes languages from 5 families in the region, basically all of Kra-Dai-Mo-Mien, and large chunks of Austroasiatic and Sino-Tibetan, and a small cluster in Austronesian. One of the ways in which languages of the Sinosphere are typologically convergent is that they underwent a particular form of transphonologization, that is, a shifting of cues that are used to support contrasts from segments onto supersegmentals. So you may have heard of tonogenesis, which is the transphonologization from codolaryngeals and onset voicing and other things like that onto tonal contrasts. You may or may not have heard of registergenesis, which is the transphonologization from onset voicing contrasts into a register contrast, which is cued by some combination of pitch, voice quality, and/or vowel quality, as seen in the work of Huffman. And so we're proposing an integrated framework for dealing with this, which we call the Desegmental Model. So this brings together the evolution of tone and register within the Sinosphere. It incorporates classical tonogenesis and registergenesis, among other understudied evolutionary pathways. And so desegmentalization is what drives this model, and that is the transphonologization from segmental to non-segmental contrasts. And it comes in different flavors: progressive, regressive, and nuclear, depending on which part of the syllable conditions the shift from segmental to supersegmental. And we also just want to be clear here that this doesn't apply to other forms of tonogenesis that exist in this area. We're specifically talking about this particular typological profile.
Now let's switch to the main topic of our presentation, which is the East Asian voicing shift. So we're introducing this term to describe a shift in the historical voicing of onsets into a register contrast. And this is part and parcel to both tonogenesis and registergenesis. Now by register, we mean a bundle of covarying cues, including most notably pitch, voice quality, and vowel quality. And this bundle of cues actually replaces the onset voicing. And you can see the table here for details about how the two registers differ in terms of these cues. Now, what articulatory gesture might underlie this particular bundle of cues that change together? Well, there are different proposals. Larynx lowering may be involved. Tongue root position may be involved. It's actually likely both of these, because both of them increase the volume of the supraglottal cavity, which is associated with both obstruent prevoicing and the low register cues, such as lower pitch, breathier voice quality, and closer vowels. So what we're talking about here is really a shift in cue weighting, or a series of shifts in cue weighting. In the first instance, from onset voicing to this register bundle, and thereafter from some cue within the register bundle may become exaggerated and phonemicized. For example, if the pitch differences in the register contrast become exaggerated, this may lead to conventional tonal contrast marked primarily by pitch differences. On the other hand, if the vowel quality differences between the two registers are exaggerated, this can lead to vowel splits, which we often find in what's a conventional register language.
Now that we've introduced the East Asian voicing shift and talked about its phonetics, let's talk about outcomes. So what primarily determines the outcome of the East Asian voicing shift is whether the language that underwent it had an existing tonal contrast at the time of the shift. And so we can look at 2 types of languages. In languages that already had lexical tone, for instance, Middle Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai, and many others, say we had 3 prototones and a voicing contrast, what we end up with is the loss of voicing and 6 tones, which compensates for that loss. On the other hand, in languages that did not have lexical tone, for instance Khmer or Mon, we see a doubling not in the number of tone contrasts, but in the number of vowel quality contrasts. So you similarly start out with ka and ga, a phonemic voicing contrast, and a certain number of vowels. And what you end up with is the loss of that voicing contrast and double the number of vowels. Now, why did one type of language do one thing and the other type of language do the other? This has to do with which of that same bundle of cues became exaggerated. So the high register causes a bump up in the pitch and the low register causes a slight drop in the pitch, and over time that results in a tonal split. Whereas languages that were not making use of lexical tone contrasts went down a different path, resulting in different cues being exaggerated and vowel quality differences being the ultimate result. Now, in both cases, voice quality differences may persist as a co-varying cue in mature tone and register languages. But what we tend to see is that those voice quality differences fade over time. So it's often a redundant cue that sticks around, but not always. Now, only very rarely does this pattern not hold, and we've given you a couple examples here. One of the ways to analyze how a particular language went through the East Asian voicing shift is by creating a tone box. So there are different kinds of tone boxes. This is a technique that's been used in different ways over the years in different linguistic circles. But here we've included an example desegmental tone box for Cantonese, in which the former onsets are represented on the left, the former codas on the right, and differences in vowel length at the bottom. We could make similar tone boxes for each of the languages that underwent the East Asian voicing shift.
We hope that in this brief overview we've been able to demonstrate to you that tonogenesis and registrogenesis in the sinosphere can be unified under the desegmental framework because they were both catalyzed by the East Asian voicing shift, and they both originated as the same bundle of phonetic cues in the register phenomenon. The ultimate resolution of the East Asian voicing shift into new phonemes depends on the input typology of the language in question. Tonal languages tended to expand their tone inventories, while non-tonal languages tended to expand their vowel inventories. In both cases, voice quality was typically retained as a redundant cue. The East Asian voicing shift is many things. It's a cornerstone of the desegmental model. It's absolutely fundamental to the typology of the sinosphere, to the point of being nearly definitional for a sinospheric language. It's massive in scope. It's affected most of the languages of the region across 5 separate language families, and appears to be perhaps the most sweeping sound change event yet described in linguistics. Please look at our poster for more information, and thank you.